Hello everyone, this is Dawn Montgomery at CASAS and welcome to the workshop on how to use practice tests. This workshop will focus on using CASAS eTest Online not only to, primarily to introduce students to CASAS web-delivered assessments, but also to help students practice taking a CASAS web-based test. Practice tests can also be used in the classroom, incorporated in instruction, as well as used in labs. Students can take practice tests as many times as they wish. No data is recorded. So the primary purpose of practice tests is to understand the delivery of the assessments, CASAS assessments, and not to determine any skills at that point in time. So those of you who joined us for the previous workshop on implementation, thank you for your participation then, and thank you for those returning to join us now in the practice test session. I meant to mention in the implementation overview session that CASAS is used nationwide as well as internationally. And so most often in our workshops we have individuals all the way from the Pacific Coast, and we actually are based here in San Diego on the Pacific Coast, and we also have participants registered and participating today. Gladys, I see that you are from Florida, and so welcome. We also have a couple of DC participants as well as additional California, and Donna and Debbie, I see that you are joining us again from Tennessee. Welcome. Folks, this is the second workshop in a series or a set of 23 complementary CASAS Online implementation workshops. And as I mentioned before, and I believe it's worth mentioning again just for your assurance, that you are not required to attend all 23 as indicated by the Citrix Online system. That system has its own training room set up, or we're using the same training room, to conduct all 23 workshops. However, the Citrix Online system sees that as when you join one meeting, you're required to join all meetings, and that's not the case. But we do highly encourage you and recommend that you and your colleagues attend as many as possible to become confident in using the online system, learn about best practices, ask questions, and to ultimately for successful implementation. Okay, so here again you see the listing of the remaining workshops. Please share this with your colleagues. And also, please take note that we have help documentation available on our website under Training and Support, eTest help documentation, as well as TOPS Pro Enterprise help documentation. You will want to be sure and bookmark these as your electronic go-to resources. And I emphasize electronic, folks, is because we often add new material to these help documentation web pages. For example, I'll just click on the TE help documentation, and as you can see, there are several topics over on the left that include detailed or additional documents contained in tables on each web page. So there is a wealth of information available to you on our website. Let me go back a page here. The CASAS eTest Online Guide is available to you under eTest Help Documentation, CASAS eTest Online Guide. This guide is 230 pages, so I recommend saving it in an electronic fashion. We will be updating this guide as we are preparing for the 2015 National Summer Institute. And I would like to extend an invitation to you to join us at this year's National Summer Institute. You will find information about the Institute in Training and support on our website, National Summer Institute. There is a schedule of events, a program, as well as registration listing the various hands-on lab sessions that will be offered for TOPS Pro Enterprise Online as well as CASAS eTest Online. Today's workshop will cover information from section 3.2, and I'll go ahead and go to that section here. Section 3.2 in the CASAS eTest Online Guide, titled Creating Sessions. Now this, and I'll go ahead and increase this for your, whoops, I'm sorry, that's not the increase, let's go here. Okay. The Creating Sections Guide is a portion of the guide is quite extensive, folks, but it goes in great detail about creating sessions. And generally, it is a coordinator, that certified coordinator, who is the only one granted the rights and abilities to create and edit testing sessions. Certified proctors are not granted those rights. The reason why we reserve those rights for certified coordinators is that it is one of the coordinator's responsibilities to ensure that that administration of CASAS web-based tests are standardized in what gets delivered and to your various programs, and how those tests get delivered to students within those programs, and to standardize that method. In other words, standardize timing of pre and post assessments, standardize whether you are going to use the same type of features and settings within the customization of those sessions. And once the coordinator understands the setup of creating sessions, then they do the initial setup, or we are offering to do that for you after a brief collaboration with you on your preferences on settings to give you a head start on getting started. We are more than happy to do that. In fact, we are piloting that concept now because there are a lot of features available that you may not quite understand. So the Creating Sections document, I'm just simply toggling through some of the pages, explains that CASAS standardized assessments are considered computer-based tests, or CBTs. We have a shortened locator. The different forms gives you detailed information about specific forms that are available. But where I'm going to, folks, is getting into the area for this particular workshop on how to use practice tests. But in order to use practice tests, a session must first be created for delivering practice tests. So let me simply toggle to this section. Sorry that these screens are streaming on your end. But let me just go here. We're getting close to it, trust me. Okay. Creating sessions begins on page 46 in your guide. And actually, I'm just now remembering I totally bypassed an important section here, so bear with me. I'm going to just toggle quickly back up to this section right here, and let me increase this. Okay. By default, practice tests appear at the top of all menus. Notice this screen display right in the middle of this image here. Practice tests with tests. So right here, the test menu includes, you see the practice items in the lighter shaded buttons, and the darker buttons here are the actual tests, such as a reading test form 81 and a math test form 31. So this is the default setup for test menus. Now, giving students the opportunity to practice before taking a test is recommended. So you have the option to create sessions just for practice. So that's this image here on the far left, where you have the same test menu. However, you are not enabling the actual test buttons below. You are just displaying the practice test buttons. This is an ideal setup for using in classrooms taking practice tests as groups or individually, incorporate the practice tests into lesson plans, or to have practice tests available in a lab where students can come and take at any time. You also have the ability to hide practice tests. This is an example of a test menu, this last image here where it says tests only, to hide the practice tests and only display the actual standardized test forms of buttons, I'm sorry, not the forms, but the actual test buttons containing the standardized forms for which students will take, such as the reading and math tests in this example. This last menu is typically a menu used for post-testing, whereas this middle menu is typically used for pre-testing. And then we've already talked about the first menu of just using it in various contexts just or solely for practice. So now let's jump to page 48 where we left off. Okay. And I'm going to use our simulation server. Our production server is, and I'll put this in the chat box here for your reference, our production server web address is etestsonline.org. Folks, this is where you access both CASAS eTests Online as well as TOPS Pro Enterprise Online. TOPS Pro Enterprise, we either refer to TOPS Pro Enterprise application as just Enterprise or TE, short for TOPS Pro Enterprise. So this is where you would access Enterprise, and anything and everything that has to do with CASAS eTests is front and center on your screen. Now folks, please don't be alarmed by this notation here. The general public does not see this. This is something internally that you are seeing now as I'm logged on as a system level user. Okay. But so let me go to the simulation server. The simulation server uses the base domain name of etestsonline.org. However, there is rolling hills with the / at the end to direct you to the simulation server. Now let me pop back over real quick momentarily to our training and support information here. eTest help documentation getting started. There is a document titled Simulation Server. Feel free to download this, and just an FYI, I am in the process of updating this, and I'll tell you what I'm updating. But here again, for those of you who joined us in the implementation workshop, you learned briefly about Rolling Hills Adult School. It is a simulation fictional database. Simulation in the sense that it simulates the online application. And then here is generic type of login information. We have pre-configured user account logins for coordinators, for proctors, for administrators, as well as teachers. And so this is the information that has changed. But for your purposes right now, in becoming familiar with CASAS eTests Online, you can certainly use coordinator or proctor sample logins. This number has increased from 40 to 50 generic user accounts, so pick your favorite number, add it after the word coordinator with @RHAS for rollinghillsadultschool.org, and there you go is the username to access the simulation server with the password simply of coordinator. Or if you sign in as a proctor, the password is simply proctor. Okay, the simulation server, also I'll put a plug in there. You are welcome to use the simulation server for your in-house staff training. And this is why we've increased the numbers from 40 to 50, because we also use the Rolling Hills Adult School simulation server in our labs at the Summer Institute. Okay, so let me now go back to the simulation server here. So I have already registered a computer. For those of you who joined us in the implementation overview, may have caught on that one of the steps in prerequisite steps prior to administering tests is that in order to administer any type of test, and this includes a practice test at this point in time, that the computers must be registered. They must be a registered testing station on the CASAS hosted server in order to deliver a CASAS web-based test. And presently that includes practice tests as well. Okay, so I'm going to sign in as a proctor. So let me go ahead. Actually, I'm going to sign in first as a coordinator just to show you the general setup of a practice test, and then I'll turn right around and do the practice test. So as a coordinator here,
oh yeah,
I'm going to log in.
Sorry, because I'm on
and go to testing sessions.
Live training.
And you'll see several pre-configured session examples here. These are set up. And also, folks, I need to let you know that the Rolling Hills Adult School Simulation Server database refreshes nightly. So you are assured of a fresh database in which to work with at the start of each day. Okay, so feel free to use any of these pre-configured sessions. Let me just simply go into this practice test session here for ABE. I'm going to simply click Edit and just briefly review this top first screen. I'm not going to be going into the details of these tabs because we have an additional workshop here on creating sessions next week on Tuesday, and that session we will go into greater detail, as well as I will demonstrate the process for registering a computer. I have done those ahead of time for a time-saving measure in this workshop. So this workshop here is part of an ABE program set of workshops specifically for delivering practice tests. Again, sessions can be used and reused throughout the entire program year. It is not necessary to create sessions every time you plan to test. Okay, so here for the modalities, because this is for an ABE program, I've simply enabled the reading and math practice tests by default. Okay, so that is what is effective for this particular session. Okay, so as a signed-on coordinator, you will notice that coordinators, if I try to start this session here, okay, I was able to start that session, and now to add, this would be an example of someone who is both a certified coordinator and a proctor, even though I'm signed on as a coordinator here. But just to let you know, if someone is only certified as a coordinator, they would not have been able to start the session. Okay, they must also be a certified proctor. So I have pre-registered my machine. I've identified it here, and I'm adding my machine on an ad hoc basis to this practice test session. Now I'm going to to the student testing station. Which in this case is the same identical screen. Whoops, not that screen, but this screen here. And at the testing station, click Administer Test. There is an executable file that must be run, and that's at the startup of your testing session. The executable file only needs to be run once on any given station, and testing can be ongoing throughout the day, and at the end of the day the application can be exited, and at that point the test delivery system that gets downloaded in this executable file is removed from the temporary memory on that testing station. And I will discuss that bit of information in greater detail in the Registering Computers workshop. So you would run this file, which I actually already have done that, and that presents a test screen. This is an example of what the screen looks like to the student. Now I'm going to go ahead and enter in an ID. IDs are assigned by you at the agency, whether done through your registration and attendance system, or if you do not have a formal registration and attendance system, then you are going to need to discuss some kind of a standard numbering or a standard way to create an identification code, I'll call it that, for your students. The codes, they can be all numeric, so an identification number, or they can you can use alpha characters or a combination of alphanumeric characters. You can add the student's date of birth. You can also have dashes, slashes, periods, spaces. Okay, but the thing is that once the ID is assigned, it should remain the same, and that student should be given that ID every time, or use that same ID every time they test. So let me go ahead and continue here. And at minimum, because this is a new student record being added to the database at time of testing, I'm just going to say new student here. The student would be prompted to enter their first and last name. Middle name is optional. Okay, I'll go ahead and put a middle initial here. The ID is non-editable once you move past that ID input field, okay? But if there is any kind of an error and a correction that needs to be made to an ID, that is done through the TOPS Pro Enterprise user interface, or TOPS Pro Enterprise application. TOPS Pro Enterprise, remember, shares the same database as CASAS eTest Online. All of your data management is done through the TOPS Pro Enterprise application. There is no editing functions available in CASAS eTest Online. Okay, so now I'm going to click the forward arrow and save this record. And here's the test menu. I've only enabled practice tests, so I'm going to go into the, I'll go into the math practice test just for fun. Students are presented with a general directions screen. The directions for any CASAS standardized assessment is the same. In other words, prompting them to click on an answer. They can skip questions by clicking the forward arrow before answering. In this practice, and I've requested this to be changed, it says you will not be able to go back to a previous question. That actually is not the case, folks, and so you may want to take a note on that they can go back on any standardized assessment. The standardized assessments must be delivered identically to all of the capabilities a student would be given as if they were paper-based testing. So students certainly can skip test items, they can go back to test items, and so forth. So the same holds true when they are in a standardized test. Now at the end of this, the test, they will be able to review their answers. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and click the next screen. Folks, this is the standard user interface that a student is presented with when taking a test. So let me start up at the top of the screen. This right here is a toolbar, and I've configured this session specifically to pin, and notice here this is a push pin, to pin the toolbar to the top of the test taker screen, primarily to draw the test taker's attention to this toolbar so that they have confirmation of their ID, they have their name, and the remaining time for administration of this test. Now, this is, here again, mimics a standardized 60-minute test administration. So practice tests are only 6 items, so it will not take them an hour to complete, okay? So we are going to adjust this here. Or this time remaining can also be removed from the practice test session. Now, also included in this toolbar are scale buttons to where the student can increase the display on their screen. There is also a retractable toolbar. Notice if I move my mouse away, the retractable toolbar is hidden, and then I can extend it again by simply moving my mouse up to the top of the screen. I can pin the toolbar there, and then I can also increase the display of the distractors here. This is the this is the display, this is the stem, the item numbers are called stems, and the distractors are basically the answer choices, okay? And notice the absence of A, B, C, and D, and that is intentional by design with the online application. Now I'm going to keep these in the largest screen display for your viewing ease on your end, and I'm going to unpin right now the retractable toolbar to clean up this screen here. Now test takers simply check the answer choice, and they don't need to check actually in the actual box. So if you have students that are unfamiliar or who have had little practice using a computer, folks, trust me, students who have never touched a computer mouse before can take a CASAS web-based test. So one of the methods is using the mouse, of course, and all they need to do is click anywhere in this answer bar. They don't have to click directly in the box. And as you know, someone who is brand new learning how to use a mouse and that incorporating that eye-hand coordination, they may have just a little bit of difficulty moving their mouse cursor to the little box. So just assure them, as long as they click on the bar, answer bar, that will apply their answer response. And then they can click the forward arrow to go to the next question. Now, folks, if you notice someone having difficulty with moving and navigating with their mouse, you can show them how to use the answer key or the keys on the keyboard, such as I just clicked the letter A, and notice the first answer is marked. If I click the letter B, the second answer, C, and then D. So I can click A, B, C, and D to apply answer responses, as well as I can use the up and down arrows on my keyboard, and it might be hard for you to see, but I'm just pointing with my mouse. Notice the first answer choice is glowing, and I'm not going to use my mouse. I'm going to use my arrow key, the down arrow key, and notice the second answer choice is glowing. So I'm simply using the up and down arrow keys to navigate between test items. And then the test taker can use the space bar to check the answer, or even use the space bar to erase an answer. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate using the space bar to choose my answer, and then use the enter key to navigate to the next test item. So now you have seen two methods for showing students how to apply responses to test items. There is a third response method, and does anyone want to chime in or enter into the chat what that third method for entering responses might be? Anyone want to take a lucky guess? Okay. Well, the third method is using a computer equipped with touch screen technology. So when I ran an assessment lab, we had one workstation that had a touch screen monitor, and that was fabulous to have as an alternative to students using the mouse or even using the keyboard. Students who may become very anxious knowing that they are going to take a test on a computer generally will feel much more at ease if all they have to do is touch the screen. And so this is not a touch screen monitor, so I'm just going to have to click on here. But you can imagine if the test taker simply touched the screen and touched the forward arrow, they can easily navigate through the test. So I hope that answers anyone who may have had questions or reservations about all students at all levels being able to take a CASAS web-based test. So let me go ahead and move forward. I'm going to skip this test item. Students are prompted with, do you want to skip this item? They can say yes or no. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I'll go ahead and skip again the next item and say yes, and now we're at the review screen. All standardized tests offer a review at the end, indicating the items in which the students applied a response and items that they chose to skip during that administration. So should there be enough time remaining, the student can then click on any of those test items to go back to them. And here again, time remaining, and we have plenty of time here. However, our workshop is actually just about done. They can apply the response. They can navigate forwards and backwards through the entire assessment as a way to review, or they can go directly back to the review screen and then end that test. And then if these were actual test buttons, then the modality, the button that represented the modality of the assessment that they just took would be disabled, so that the student cannot take another test of the same modality in the same sitting. Then in that case, if we say just finished a math test, this would be disabled, and all we could do is go into a reading test. But in this case, practice tests are always available. Students can take and retake as many times as they wish. Okay? Folks, I am so sorry. I usually like to leave at least 5 minutes at the end of every workshop to take questions, but I see I'm a minute over time. My apologies for that. But I would like to just hold on for just a few more minutes and ask if anyone has any questions that I can address at this point. Great, Gladys. Yes, please do take as many. Please take as many workshops as you can. The way the workshops are presented, folks, is an order that I believe is very logical for successful implementation. So it really takes you from the very beginning, and it just, each workshop you will see as you continue to join these workshops, each workshop will build on the previous knowledge that you learned, or the knowledge that you learned in the previous workshops. So in the meantime, please visit the eTest help documentation as well as enterprise help documentation. I would encourage you to retrieve a copy of the eTest online guide because as I mentioned, as I conduct these workshops, I frequently refer to the material contained in that guide. Okay, so thank you, folks, for joining us today. I hope this was informative and helps you to understand how simple the screen and the process is for students taking a CASAS web-based test. Any further questions before we close today's workshop? All right, folks, with that, we'll go ahead and end today's workshop. I encourage you, let's just take a quick glance next week. Next week, we will be covering creating sessions and managing sessions, or excuse me, registering computers, creating sessions on Tuesday, managing sessions and administering tests on Wednesday, and reconnecting, interrupting and reconnecting tests on Thursday. So this makes a great set for next week. So I hope to see most of you back next week. And with that, have a wonderful remainder of this work week and a wonderful weekend.